On November 11th, 2024, an uploader by the name of Gabriel posted a video called Piglet's Big Game Creepy and Eerie Ambience Compilation. The video gained significant traction online, sparking a wave of curiosity. Its eerie, horror-like soundtrack and unsettling gameplay elements seem totally out of place for a children's game. The buzz even caught the attention of Forbes, which ran an article analyzing the phenomenon and its impact. The full name of the game is Piglet's Big Game, but it's cleverly styled with Big Movie crossed out to make space for game, a nod to its origins as a movie adaptation. The game was released in 2003, tying into Disney's Piglet's Big Movie. I actually owned the movie as a child, and let me tell you, that shit was lit. I used to bother my mom all the time to pop that VHS tape in. The nostalgia is real, but my mom, she probably dreaded that pink pig by the end of it. Anyway, the game came out on GameCube, PlayStation 2, and PC. Developed by French studio Doki Denki, it turned out to be much darker than anyone expected for a game based on Winnie the Pooh. The fixed camera angles, haunting empty locations, and ominous soundtrack made it feel like a kid-friendly Resident Evil. Some players have even drawn comparisons to Silent Hill, noting that the music is oddly similar to tracks composed by Akira Yamaoka. There's speculation that the eerie vibes were intentional, possibly to emphasize Piglet's fears and teach kids about overcoming them. Here's a little bit of what Foreboding, a song that's in the game's soundtrack, sounds like. Yeah, I know, I almost didn't even believe that it was a kid's game. This isn't just a nostalgia trip, it's become a collector's item. Copies of Piglet's Big Game are now selling for insane prices on sites like eBay. If you have one gathering dust somewhere, congrats, you're actually sitting on a gold mine. But if not, you can check out emulators or let those who played it back in the day share their experiences. You can even emulate it on RetroArch, a website people use to play retro games, but the cool thing about it is that the community comes up with achievements for these otherwise old retro games that don't really have them. What's fascinating about Piglet's Big Game is how it unintentionally borrows elements from survival horror classics like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. The fixed camera angles, for example, are a staple of early survival horror games, creating a sense of disorientation and vulnerability. The game also features dreamlike, empty environments that some players have compared to the haunting liminality of Silent Hill's foggy streets. And let's not forget the music. The soundtrack leans into atmospheric, almost droning melodies that would feel right at home in a Resident Evil safe room or a disturbing Silent Hill cutscene. For a game aimed at kids, the mood it creates is surprisingly unsettling. It's like someone accidentally infused Piglet's innocent adventures with a touch of Akira Yamaoka-style dread. This unintentional creepiness feels like a bizarre mashup, as if Piglet's Big Game walked into a survival horror convention and somehow didn't look out of place. And that's probably why it's captured the imagination of so many people online. It's the perfect blend of nostalgic comfort and eerie surprise. The developers of Piglet's Big Game, a French studio called Doki Denki Studio, had a relatively small portfolio focused on licensed games. While they weren't exactly known for creating masterpieces, they brought a unique flair to their projects. For Piglet's Big Game, this resulted in a blend of whimsical storytelling and oddly atmospheric gameplay. It's not clear if the darker tone of the game was entirely intentional or just a byproduct of their creative choices. French developers have a reputation for taking artistic liberties with their games. Just look at titles like Rayman or Beyond Good and Evil, which mix lighthearted themes with more mature undertones. It's possible that Doki Denki was trying to give Piglet's journey a sense of depth, using eerie music and dreamlike settings to emphasize his fears. Sadly, Doki Denki Studio shut down in 2004, shortly after the game's release, so we may never know their true intentions. But whether by design or accident, they managed to create a Disney tie-in game that stands out, and has now gained a second life as an internet curiosity. The gameplay of Piglet's Big Game is surprisingly unique for a Disney tie-in. The storyline revolves around Piglet venturing into the dream worlds of his friends, like Tigger and Rabbit, to help them overcome their fears. Each dream is essentially a self-contained level where Piglet, the tiniest and most timid character in the 100-Acre Wood, transforms into an unlikely hero. The gameplay has a mix of puzzle solving, stealth mechanics, and light adventure elements. Piglet is too small to fight enemies directly, so he relies on his wits and creativity. For instance, he can use his bravery points to scare off Dreamworld creatures, a nice twist on the usual fight or flee mechanic. These moments make the gameplay stand out as it emphasizes courage over combat. The tone of the game's story is where things get really interesting. While it's designed to teach kids about overcoming fears, the execution is oddly unsettling. The environments feel empty and quiet, the enemies have a shadowy, dreamlike quality, and the soundtrack often dips into haunting melodies. It's like the game is saying, yes, this is about bravery, but we're going to make you feel that fear first. It's such a far cry from the light-hearted tone of other Disney games from the same era, like The Lion King or Aladdin. A big part of why Piglet's Big Game has resurfaced in such a viral way is the power of nostalgia. For those of us who grew up with Disney classics, revisiting anything related to the 100-Acre Wood brings back warm, fuzzy memories of simpler times. Whether it's watching Piglet's Big Movie on VHS or playing games on the GameCube or PS2, there's a deep emotional connection that keeps drawing us back. But nostalgia doesn't just stop at fond memories, it transforms how we see things as adults. What felt innocent as a child can now seem strange or even creepy, especially when viewed through the lens of internet culture. Rediscovering Piglet's Big Game is like finding a forgotten relic and realizing it's more complex than you remembered. It's part of a broader trend where we collectively revisit the media of our youth, looking for hidden depth, or, let's be honest, material for memes. And that's why the internet loves moments like this. People see something familiar in an entirely new light, sparking conversations and creativity. Nostalgia gives us the initial spark, but it's the strange, unexpected details, like the unsettling music or dreamlike visuals, that keep us talking. For a game like this to come back into the spotlight decades later, it shows how powerful those childhood memories really are. One of the most striking aspects of Piglet's Big Game is its soundtrack. It's almost as if the composer forgot they were scoring a children's game and instead went for something you'd expect to hear in a psychological thriller. The music is atmospheric, with haunting melodies and dissonant tones that feel more like at home for a survival horror game like Silent Hill. For example, some tracks are droning strings and eerie ambient noise that build tension, creating an unsettling vibe as you navigate the dream worlds. Even the lighter tracks, meant to fit in the whimsical setting of the 100-Acre Wood, have an uncanny, melancholic undertone. It's like the music is constantly reminding you that these dream worlds aren't entirely safe. This tonal dissonance adds to the overall surreal feeling of the game and plays a huge part in why it feels so eerie to players revisiting it now. It's worth noting how powerful music can be in shaping a game's mood. Without this soundtrack, Piglet's Big Game might just feel like a standard children's adventure game. Instead, it leaves an impression that sticks with you long after the credits roll. If you're curious, I'd recommend checking out the full original soundtrack online. There are fan uploads on YouTube that highlight just how weirdly beautiful and haunting this score is. One of the wildest effects of Piglet's Big Game going viral is how it's impacted the game's value as a collectible. Before this recent surge in popularity, the game was pretty obscure. You could probably find a used copy for a few bucks at a thrift store or online, but now, prices have skyrocketed. Listings for the game on platforms like eBay have seen asking prices jump to hundreds of dollars, all because it's suddenly a hot topic on the internet. This isn't the first time we've seen nostalgia and virality boost the value of old media. Remember when Shoelip or Pepsi Man became meme-worthy and suddenly everyone was hunting for copies? The same thing happened with old Pokemon cards and retro consoles like the Nintendo 64. The combination of internet hype, limited availability, and the collective FOMO of collectors creates a perfect storm for a price spike. But the big question is, how long will the hype last? A lot of these viral trends are like shooting stars, bright and exciting, but over before you know it. Once the internet moves on to the next big thing, the demand for Piglet's big game might settle down. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, now might be the time to act. What makes Piglet's big game so fascinating is how perfectly Piglet as a character fits into the slightly eerie tone of the game. In the world of Winnie the Pooh, Piglet is the epitome of timidity and anxiety, constantly fretting about what could go wrong. So placing him in dream worlds filled with shadowy enemies and eerie music feels oddly appropriate. It's almost like his deepest fears have taken form, and now he has to face them head on. What's unique is how the game flips the script on Piglet's usual role. Instead of being the one in need of rescuing or reassurance, Piglet becomes the hero. He doesn't rely on physical strength or bravado. Instead, he uses his cleverness and bravery to help his friends. It's a surprisingly empowering take for a character often dismissed as just the scared one. There's also something deeply relatable about Piglet's journey. His fears feel universal: fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and the game's eerie tone amplifies these emotions. It's this relatability that makes the game resonate with both kids and adults. For kids, it's about learning to be brave. For adults, it's a reminder of how we're all still facing our own dream monsters in one way or another. If you're curious about playing Piglet's big game today, there are a few ways to go about it, though it's definitely not as simple as picking it up from your local store. First, you can try hunting down a physical copy, though they're not exactly easy to find anymore. Online marketplaces like eBay or retro game stores are your best bet, but be prepared to pay a premium, especially since the game's newfound viral popularity has driven up prices. If you'd rather skip the hassle of tracking down a dusty old disc, emulation is a solid option. There are plenty of emulators for GameCube, PS2, and even PC, which means that you can play the game on your computer without needing the original console. Sites like Dolphin Emulator for GameCube or PCS X2 for PS2 can run the game pretty smoothly, and all you need is the game's ISO file, which can be downloaded from various ROM sites, but be sure to check the legal side of things in your region. Finally, if you're just looking for the experience without the physical or technical commitment, YouTube is always a good fallback. You'll find several full playthroughs of Piglet's big game uploaded by fans who are more than happy to share the eerie nostalgia of the game for you to enjoy from the comfort of your screen. So, whether you want to experience it on the original hardware, through emulation, or just by watching someone else get creeped out by Piglet's wild dreams, there are plenty of ways to dive into this unique slice of gaming history. I hope you guys enjoyed this deep dive into Piglet's big game and its unexpected journey into viral fame. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more content like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the game's eerie vibe and its strange return to popularity? Drop a comment below and let's chat. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious and keep hopping along with me. Bye.